Good morning and Eid Mubarak, everybody. I am Kusum Dixit. Welcome you all on behalf of CIA Global Venture LLP for this webinar, COVID-19, an opportunity to take warriors out of entrepreneurs. We as CGV believe in real, valuable, and sustainable solutions. We provide sector agnostic global management consulting and financial infra advisory. We are an ISO 9001-2015 certified company. Our CMD, Mr. Alok Sapre, will be the moderator for the panel. He himself is having 35 years of diversified experience in infrastructure, hydropower, transportation, oil gas, and environment sector. He led various international and national companies. With his vision to give back to the industry, he has started his consulting venture in 2013. He's a great mentor and inspiration to many existing leaders today. Now I welcome Mr. Alok to please take over the discussion forward. Welcome, Mr. Alok.
The entire event basically has been organized with industry in terms of taking our best out of ourselves, because we have always thrived with or without any support. And I think we were always really a warrior. And this is the time for us to again bring out our warriors to be out of the entrepreneurship. The seasons of Q4, typically in an infrastructure cycle, Q4 is the productive one, which has been lost largely due to, I would say, COVID intervening in between mid when supply chain from China and other industries stopped to large extent. And March was because of lockdowns from mid-month onwards. April, May, and June appears to be on the course of wash down because of, again, lockdowns and communicating issues with supply chain, as well as maybe the problem of migrant laborers, which is there. But at the same time, as we as industry were always used to some other problem, and this is a time maybe when we have to really see how we come out of this. Typically, industry problems also dates back about 10 years back without COVID, when government thought that our balance sheets are good enough in terms of converting us to developers and promoters. And then we all became, as industry, investing on BOT projects. And the results were not uniform for everyone. And in fact, the side which has tilted towards negative was much better in terms of debt prices, much bigger in terms of debt prices compared to what we had, seen benefits of. And that NPA cycle has gone into further with IBC and all problems. And then when industry was trying to recover, maybe last 1 year, 1.5 years, with more of EPC business and some part of HAM, which is not always a very good model, but yeah, better model than the total PPP. Turnovers have already impacted. As I said, when Q4 is around 30-35% of annual turnover of construction companies, and maybe Q1 is almost 35 to 40% because of the productivity. And then anyway, we suffer monsoon in most part of the country for literally 4.5 months. So this is the scenario which we are into already, and assuming that by October things will totally cool down and people will come back to work, and the new normal won't impact us that much the way it is today in terms of social distancing and health issues and all. Maybe we will be able to show something which is unique, that our spirit of fight, that how we do in 5 months, what probably we should use to do in 12 months, which is a big challenge. At the same time, industry also had one issue where the EPC were on. Our own colleagues tried to be very, very competitive. The new entrants always believed in a formula, maybe that, getting something on lowest will help. But this has another way to look at it. Is it important to have too many projects, or it is important to close on the projects what we have with better turnovers, so our resources are not stretched the way it is normally? At the same time, maybe the resources could be more optimized, and we are very used to manual working and less of other than the major equipments. Can we somewhere bring in productivity into play with targeting the projects better? By all of us, we have to think new. And this is where exactly we thought of creating this webinar, maybe where all the stalwarts who are there on the panel today and tomorrow, they are from largely infrastructure industry. Either they are.
Welcome, Mr. Valecha.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jagdish Valecha, Managing Director at Valecha Infrastructure Limited. I would like to welcome Mr. Sandeep Reddy on the panel, Managing Director at Gayatri Projects Limited. I would like to welcome Mr. Prakash Pai, owner of Puzlona Machinery Fabricators LLP, Mr. Sailesh Joshi, co-founder and director at Encosim Solutions Private Limited. So, Mr. Ashish Kataria, director at Ashoka Bilcon, Ashoka Concessions Limited, and possesses.
I'm Jagdish Valecha, representing the Valecha group of companies. We build EPC projects and we own BOT projects. The previous government had used the balance sheet of the construction companies by thrusting a lot of PPP projects. The current need of the hour post-COVID is to unlock the balance sheet fund of funds. So what I would suggest as an immediate effect that can be given as a relief to pump prime the EPC and the infrastructure space is that the fund of funds should buy out the equity of 51% and we leave it to the honorable minister and his consultants like PwC, EY, whom he is dealing with, to work out a rational price point. The purpose of unloading the balance sheet from these investments, which even NHAI themselves are trying, is to get the monies back in the hands of the bank. RBI and the fund of funds work together. Purpose being that if that monies come in the hands of the bank, and the bank should give with those monies bank guarantees. So really speaking, the cash is not moving out. The cash is coming from the fund of funds that belong to the government. It goes to the company and it goes back to the bank. As soon as the bank gets the handle of that monies by the PPP owner diluting or selling off the stake to the fund of funds, the bank can give 4 times or 5 times of that value, equity value, as a bank guarantee. Infrastructure and EPC is one of the largest employers of here. Simply if the fund of fund buys off on some agreed formulae, immediately 51%, and the balance paperwork can be done for the balance 49%, get relief in the hands of the companies, which indirectly goes to the banks, and the banks give 4 times or 5 times as decided by the honorable minister bank guarantee limits. This will pump prime all the projects that he is thinking of.
When you talk about fund of funds, the way minister has spelled it out, and yes, it's a I would say it's a bold move. If suppose really government really goes for it, and the biggest problem what we have seen, as you rightly explained, the banks, they have to really pitch in for this, but the risk for them is very low here to be considered, because I think one-time injection is really going to revive the industry, and at least we want to be there from October, kicking and pumping out our.
Yeah, see, basically, I didn't really understand the fund of fund thing. If you have to buy your BOT projects, most of our projects are stuck because there is no equity value, because the bank loans interest costs are so high, and the delays. All this has happened due to the delays in the projects, due to, as usual, the land acquisition, and the various delays. And
which earlier it has come as part sharing, but now it has to become a permanent tool. So maybe the balance of these requirements maybe ultimately is going to revive at least the asset lock area, which is particularly the BOT assets which are supposed to be monetized on longer run, and at the same time, like valuation probably is one key area which will play pre-COVID and post-COVID. So do you have any view on the valuation aspects of assets, maybe when we talk about any support? Because valuation will be handy in terms of how should be done more realistically, both from our side as well as from the valuers or investors.
See, there are 2 kinds of problems. One where the viability, the project is complete, it's viable, but it's not selling because of the environment and because of the overall situation. And then there are second projects which have got into the cost overrun, time overrun, and the concessionaire is fighting with the government for claims. There are 2 kinds of situations. So I will address the second part, which Sandeep touched. Let's imagine a project which has got into a time overrun and a cost overrun, And if the government is pragmatic enough to either pay off the claims, the way Mr. Gadkari is saying that a lot of his NHI projects he has given claims, but if a solution is created in such a way that the claims don't come in the hands of a concessioner, the concessioner is willing to write his equity to the fund of fund along with the claims in a manner of a formula that is acceptable to the bank as well as the government, whether it is state government or whether it is central government, and that monies are not taken by the concessioner home. His skin is still there in the game. What?
So Shailesh, by the way, you have any view because you were also a banker earlier. We'll even introduce you later.
What the government is doing right now is purely from the supply side, whereas the requirement is to push on the demand side as well. And that is where the issues are coming from, is that while money is available with the bank, in some senses they are not able to distribute it because of the NPA issues, regulations, and the current problem. So the kind of solution that Jagdish sir is suggesting is actually going to roll over the money and start the supply side.
Great. I think like Jagdish Bhai has already opened the forum. In fact, he has really moderated very well, Jagdish Bhai, to get everybody on the live discussion. But I would request Sandeep, maybe if he can just share about the similar way about him, his company a bit, and also about the industry, the way he.
So basically, just to give my background, I've been last 30 years in this business, even though my family started 50 years back. So construction infrastructure has evolved from being a contracting business in the country. When the government then started, I think this whole BOT and PPP businesses, I think 10, 15 years ago, all of us jumped onto the bandwagon. What I always see is ultimately, if you see even world over today, I think PPP is not the this thing of construction companies. Our balance sheets are actually not enough to take up PPP. This HAM has come in the last 5 years. I think it's just old wine in new bottle. As per that, coming to the claims, as you rightly said, that even after winning an arbitration award, these people still want to go to the Supreme Court. Nobody has the guts. In fact, I'll give a simple example. In fact, the government of India and Niti Aayog has been coming with a simple example that 75% of your claims you can now draw against bank guarantee. The award, the amendment came in November. Till today, last month, the SOP of NHAI is not yet finalized. They just got finalized. It took 5 months for them to just implement an SOP. How to, not to take. And also in that SOP, they have clearly said that in case you won the arbitration award, you don't need to, you go to, don't go for automatic appeal in the next court. You go to a legal opinion, legal to the law ministry. But that also has not worked. Nobody has the guts to do that. They still want to go on appeal. Models have been good so far. Like you see Purvanchal in UP or even Nagpur, Mumbai. See, the government is also behaving like the BOT operator. They are borrowing money from banks at a lower interest rate than you and me, and they are giving on only an EPC contract. And eventually, if the projects are completed on time, tightly, they are then able to then do a TOT, and that is the best model. I'll give an example. Today, in both these state government projects, the interest during construction, they are paying 8% to the banks. When I think Jagdish can vouch, when we were doing our BOT project, we paid 12% interest during construction. So how do you double from day one? So how do you make it viable? So that is, I think, a model which they should look at it. So and land acquisition, I have seen in state governments, because of their money, 100% land has come. The same NHAI projects in they don't give the land. The state government don't give the same support as for their own projects now. It's become like a race for the chief ministers to prove that they have to finish the project in 2 years. So they are actually, it's a positive thing also.
So I think as you rightly said, maybe one thing is on the government side to really find a mechanism, and maybe we all as industry has to pitch in about a better mechanism. But then you also said that there is some area like big developers also are now not moving into it, and then monetization also has not happened to the way it should have been for finished assets, which Jagdish Bhai touched upon initially. In construction phase, maybe yes, there are various reasons, right from the hindrances to the own problems, which have put some of the assets on block, not possible to be on the block. But
also
other side, the old players, they have some issues, legacy issues because of on the balance sheet naturally. So they are not able to really be competitive, or maybe even to take good projects, even they want to. but then new players are still driving the horses the way nothing has happened. So this is another, this is another thing which is maybe adding to the already, because see, you start doing good as established players, and then new horses walk in, and then they start spoiling the market. Then, one side the RBI or bank or government thinks of opening up something, but again they see the scenario is same. Although they like lowest prices, but then the credit side gets jammed. So, do you feel that this also has an impact on decision making because of
of course.
blind race?
See, one side, in fact, we always keep saying that a lot of times the DPRs of NHA are wrong and the estimates are bad. One side we send, and then people who end up bidding below estimate for some of these, and I don't know how the other new players are able to work at that cost. After 5 years, half these projects will go bust. Then again, then they'll realize. Then you'll have, after 5 years, you'll have new set of guys coming in. Was actually, I think, a good thing for the investors, because see, I'll tell you, earlier the whole model was that the private equity route has failed, because see, you don't get that sort of returns. People are looking at 13-14% yield assets for long term. There's so much of negative yield in the world. So that's how you saw all these pension funds, a lot of these TOTs and all are coming. So that, I think, was a really thing in the right direction. So I think that will continue. So only I think the short-term COVID problem has affected your business only for a year. See, today people want to buy a asset, they look at 20-year period. So I don't know how they are going to plug into their valuation models, maybe when the economy will come back. So that is I think the challenge now. How do you know, how can you predict the traffic? It is like saying that this year my traffic is lower than, say, by 20% overall. But next year, will it come back to the pre-COVID levels? We don't know. The whole economy growth, it's all dependent on the models. So I guess all these investors also may have different ways of evaluating these things. But I think long-term thing is there in India, but they may only slow down now for some time. I think for next 6 months, people are until things stabilize. I don't think any financial investors are going to really buy out assets, is what my feeling is.
There is also some instance I very vaguely see somewhere.
Deep says is true and valid, because he's in the midst of a couple of deals as such. To summarize, I think InvITs will be good. It should continue. It's an alternate source of listing and return to the investor who wants secured return. I think the government should ban the BOT projects for some time, PPP projects for some time, till there is stability in the system. Otherwise, you are just, like Sandeep is saying, putting new people's balance sheet at risk. And finally, at the end of the journey, you will have bank defaults happening because the projects will go sick and the claims will not come. So finally, you're pushing, not meant and designed to own big capital asset in their balance sheet, because that kind of funding doesn't exist in this country.
So if the BGs, I think government has actually now done a good job by saying that if you see the Prime Minister's thing, that they are willing to return back proportionate BGs back. But nobody has they have already announced that. In fact, the message has come to all NHA, NHIDCL, but state governments still do have no power on them. So state government projects, there is no clarity where you get your BGs back. But even these, the SOP is still not, they're still sleeping on it. They have to quickly give back the BGs, give that extension of 6 months of the projects. So at least those BGs come back. That will help our cash flow, because I'll tell you what happened because of COVID practically. When work was going on in full swing in this thing, our working capital cycles are affected. Because see, we take cement steel on credit with some, say, 60 days or 20 days credit. Because of the lockdown, my 60 days credit has become 120. So the fellow says, you pay me the full money. Unless you pay, I won't be able to supply. So the entire cash is, that whole cycle has got, the wheel has stopped. So we have to restart. Probably we need some more new BGs to give them and say, okay, I'll give you additional security. I've not taken a single BOT. We don't have any BOT projects. All our projects are EPC, different states. So we've been able to restart all our projects, not in full swing after the lockdown, because of, this labor have run away. So that is going to be a long, I think, thing. Because now, next 6 months, nobody's going to come back. We've been sending people. Also, I've been telling my guys that we should now start thinking how to reduce dependence on labor. Maybe go for more mechanization. Like some things are happening. For example, now Tata Steel has come with this new mechanized way of rod bending and giving you for your bridge. So we need to maybe increase more of that, so that we'll reduce rod benders in our sites. So steel rod benders come down. So, but again, requires capital. Like today, I always say the guys who work in Gulf, The farm works are different, more stronger, more capital intensive, and they are able to reduce the labor. But here we again requires investment. Everything comes back to money. So we have to quietly work out. And also other thing what we are trying to say is try to reduce costs as much as possible, get into them and reduce as much overheads as possible. Now using the excuse, every industry is doing this. There earlier, if you go and tell my people, you reduce, you come with some story that I need people. Now you say that you can't. There's no way we can survive. So that fear, I think, we are installing in all our management. So at least to reduce, it's like saying a manager has some give them more work. No, you means that luxury has to be cut now.
Post-COVID, quick broad points.
Keep your overheads low.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on the productivity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are in some serious trouble. And keep pursuing the recovery cycle on what the government has announced. It should actually translate into reality. Otherwise, the announcement and the lag, if it goes beyond this 3-4 months, then you are killing the working capital cycle more. So keep an eye on a working capital cycle.
I want to share something about and how you assess situation that we can talk about. Post-COVID, what do you see the changes happening with your group, Pozolona, in terms of production, market? Then we'll come to specifics further. You can start generally.
General, we are an engineering group entered in food industry and IT industry, and doing a business of almost about used to do business of about 1,500 to 1,700 crores, but today with the COVID, it has come down drastically.
That manufacturing is really hit by the impact of COVID in terms of both supply chain as well as the workforce first, generally.
Basically, engineering industry is depending on the labor. When the labor is not available, you can't do anything. Ours is 90% is labor work. So, I mean, today we have only 20%. We used to have about 7,000 people working under us. Today we have about only.
Typically, like, when you started, because I remember when you started, you were very hands-on with, even requirement on industry, and then you picked up. So the Make in India, the way the things have started, in fact, you started quite long back. So how you feel that these changes, what are happening in industry for Make in India and business moving out of China or other countries, and then India is geared up for that, and you being the industry yourself and a reputed industry yourself and you're given, I would say, good competition to international players. Seeing that, how you see the situation is going to be for you? You can elaborate.
China, we have never considered as a competitor at all, because when we manufacture ourselves, we know where to cut down the rate and how to cut down the rate. Yeah, Europe, there were some automation issues, which whether our buyers are willing to pay for the automation. This is the question which we have. Make in India, made in India, and made by Indians.
Yes, I would say lessons from COVID. Do you feel that it will change?
Absolutely, it will change. Absolutely, it will change. There is no doubt in that. And as Sandeep ji has said correctly, that bar bending and other mechanisms, it is going to happen. We have a role to play. We have to reduce the cost of production, which is most important for all construction industry, and we have to reduce the manpower.
Yeah. Shailesh, I would slightly come to you on this. You have worked in Indonesia quite extensively, and other countries also on the energy side. The natural material requirement market in Indonesia and other places where you have worked. Shailesh?
If you look at Indonesia, that's the second fastest growing market in Asia after India.
Yeah.
So just like India, Indonesia has also been on the path of putting up a lot of infrastructure projects, and there is a 10-year blueprint that is available, a lot of projects that are being available. The problem that Indonesia kind of market faces is the license rush. It is not as free market as India is today, and therefore there is a issue of going into the market along with only a local partner, and then you are not allowed to hold more than 55% in a project in a construction sector. So there are some different challenges there. Plus there is a issue of similar issues like India of the contract owner, what do you say, holding up the contract, I mean honoring the contract. And the legal structure is pretty weak in those countries. Technology deployment on construction projects, I believe Indonesia will have an edge over India because they are also close to Koreans and Japanese technical. To cite an example, right next to my office in Indonesia, there was a plot and a 51-storied building was constructed within 2.5 years, including the internals done.
We want to reduce the debt servicing. I mean, the debt servicing is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
So merger and acquisition will take place. There is no doubt in that. Debt servicing, how we are going to do? Reduce your interest burden. In supply chain, the prices will go up because even though people may say that prices will come down, because one thing is availability of the labor, manpower. Second thing is hardware and raw material availability.
Shailesh Joshi, I was, as Alok has introduced earlier, I was an earlier banker with ICICI for about 8 years, did my project finance there. And after that, I was with Feedback Ventures as head of their energy consulting practice. For 17 years, I was with Feedback Ventures and worked with almost all state governments, regulators, utilities, private investors, private equity players, etc. on energy sector consulting. So my primary experience comes from consulting background, and somewhere in December 2017, I decided to hang my boots with the consulting industry and enter the world of entrepreneurship. So I'm a very young entrepreneur as compared to you stalwarts. So February 18, I started my own firm called Encosim Solutions, and it is a dedicated firm for energy efficiency consulting as well as project implementation. So we also invest in energy efficiency projects on benefit. As we all know, the power demand and offtake has dropped almost 30% from what was before COVID and what was currently happening in April and May. And as Sandeep sir rightly pointed out, the biggest hit is on the thermal sector, where coal plants are showing power plant load factors of about 40 to 45%. And that aggravates the problem because almost 60,000 megawatts capacity is already under MPA, and the existing capacity, if it is operating below the minimum fixed payment norms, then they are also going to go in that negative spiral of debt payment and etc. And they have come up with a lot of institutional reforms, which is, again, I said earlier, supply side changes for the power sector and the energy sector companies. Well, some of them would be one, coal sector privatization. So commercial coal mining will be permitted. I believe the entire privatization framework documentations are already ready, and as soon as the COVID crisis is kind of subsided, then these projects will start coming out, maybe Q2, towards the end of Q2. Number two, big time changes coming in the Electricity Act 2003. Now it is called as Electricity Amendment Act 2020. And one of the prime things that they have institutionalized in this act is the Central Contract Enforcement Agency. The opportunities that I think that are going to emerge is, one is coal mining and coal bed methane extraction. That is going to be one line of projects that is going to come up. PGCIL is announcing significant amount of transmission projects that are going to come up. Distribution is going to be more on performance management, efficiency improvements, etc. So they will have smart metering kind of projects. They will have energy management system, EMS kind of projects. So a lot of automation and online IoT kind of projects are expected out of the distribution.
See, sometimes one should not only complain about the problems.
We believe in a thing called outsourcing. And with outsourcing, certainly we can make it. But instead of having, as of now, we are having only in Telangana, that is in and around Hyderabad. Now we have to start every state, so that we'll save in two fronts. One is logistics, other one is developing the local manpower.
So this industry, I think service industry is able to manage it well because they can manage through work from home kind. For manufacturing, it is going to be a tough task to actually find kind of skilled labor that is required. And number two, to manage cost in a way that you are able to make not revenue minus cost this time, but I believe this is going to be a cost plus kind of a scenario that you will survival is more important than profits.
Today, yeah, Ashish could only touch about the subject of a lot of topic discussions are going on in press and everywhere. Work from home in construction, how it will change. So he has taken that up.
I'm here representing Ashoka Buildcon. I'm a director with the company, and Ashoka Buildcon, few of you all may be knowing, is a company which operates mainly in the infrastructure construction space. 4-decade-old company based out of Nasik, almost 4,000 plus employee base, and now working in 19 states in India, length and breadth of India, and a little bit of presence overseas as well. Ashoka mainly operates in the highways sector, and one of the largest highway and most experienced highway BOT players in the country. We also do EPC, regular construction contracts, bulk of it for NHAI, and some projects that we are particularly proud of are Eastern Peripheral Expressway, which is a highway constructed around Delhi. We did one section of that highway, and it's one of the projects which we are very proud of because it was done in a record time of just 12 months, again a contract period of 24 months. So also currently under development is an expressway, Baroda-Mumbai Expressway. We are doing a stretch of that highway, and the feather in the cap there is a bridge across river Narmada, which is a 8-lane cable-stayed bridge. Other than that, recently we are about to complete 8-laning of JNPT, and a large portfolio is under development in Karnataka. Other than this, recently also diversified into the oil and gas sector. We have gas distribution licenses for 5 districts, and been a good journey so far on those businesses. So how work from home will affect the working pattern of people at all levels in the construction industry? Of course, projects are implemented on the ground. There is no question of work from home. You cannot lay a cubic meter of concrete sitting in your house. You have to be there. So that will continue to be the way it is, unless there is some quantum leap in technology, so you could supervise projects remotely. I do not see anything much changing on the projects side. Especially industries which have a very repetitive nature of job and which doesn't throw a lot of surprises would be most convenient to move to work from home. So just to give you an example, something like a BPO or a call center or a business process which is outsourced, somebody can sit anywhere on this planet and do the same work, and the same work would continue to come. There are hardly any surprises. But construction isn't the same. Construction is something which works on projects. The difference in a project, a batch process and a flow process, if you understand manufacturing, is that a project is something which is unique. Every project is going to be unique. And this uniqueness continues to throw a lot of challenges to the people who are constructing, the people who are designing, the people who are monitoring, the people who are in any form connected with the construction project. I do not see work from home in a big way coming on offices also, because the whole ethos of a successful construction company is the ability to respond very quickly to challenges, and that ability and most of the challenges actually require a multi-department or a multi-person skill input. This is only possible when physical presence is available. The challenges are clearly understood because each time they are going to be unique. Work from home would be a compromise. Maybe for a few days, people may opt for work from home because of some limitations or travel or etc. But the general norm for the construction industry is going to be organized office work. I wouldn't be surprised if some industries actually expect more productivity for the same mandate if you are working from home, or if you are giving the same productivity as office and working from your home, they may ask you to take a lesser salary because of all the convenience, etc., that you are getting. So this correction would come. It will ultimately, it has to balance out.
It was highly and very healthy interaction from Jagdish Bhai, Sandeep, and Prakash ji and Shailesh. I think probably we all are benefited somewhere or other, and let's keep the momentum for seeing the better part of the discussions come out as results. Thanks everyone, and Kusum, maybe you can summarize.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the panelists.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you heartily, and I would like to request everyone to please come up with some positive notes, as our theme is that COVID-19 is an opportunity to make out warriors out of entrepreneurs. So as we can understand, this is a critical time, but still we are looking at you as the hope, who are there in the industry from so long. So we can see that there must be some positive outlook people will be having. So we would like to have a positive note ending from everyone.
Yeah, maybe if you want to put one word, last, suppose. All of you, if you want to put anything. Jagdish Bhai, Shailesh, Prakash ji.
When the situation gets tough, the Indian engineers and the Indian entrepreneurs are known to get tougher.
Correct. Thanks. Well said. Prakash ji.
I mean, same thing.
That was also visible when the power demand suddenly dropped, when everybody was asked to switch off light for 10 minutes, and still the entire power industry could manage without hitting the grid. So it is well said. The only thing is tough times don't last, tough people do. So yeah.
Correct. I think we always hear, in fact, कि गिरते हैं शह सवारी मैदाने जंग में. This is the first time when मैदाने जंग itself is topsy-turvy. So that's the only difference, but I think we would be able to manage our horses right. So thanks a lot. Nice interacting with you all, and look forward to more meaningful engagements in future. Thank you. Thanks from all of us in CIA-GLOCAL.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you very much to all the panelists and the audience.